Oh, there it is already. Stugatz saying hello for the first time in 4 years and securing your services for free next week. Stupidity and elsewhere. It makes me happy to see your face, buddy, and I want to tell the audience what I only know you from afar. I know the people who are your closest friends are really strong allies and know you really well. And you've done a new book, Unbreakable: How I Turned My Depression and Anxiety into Motivation, and you can too. It's available now. And the reason I'm so happy to see this guy, okay, because I've marveled at his entire career, was going to be a stand-up comic, hustled and his way unbelievably into the information NFL game, and then pioneered it, owned it, casually made relationships with players as most mainstream media was making its relationships with the executives, and really changed the way this stuff is done in the information business. And I'm happy to see the evolution of you as a man. I've talked to you about how much you love your family, but to be talking openly about this stuff, Jay, when you're MMA guy, when you're football guy, talking openly about when you're military guy, when you're doing amazing work with military heroes, and now you turning your insides out and giving the audience your vulnerability. I just think it's extraordinarily cool what you've done with the platform, Jay.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I think because I'm in football and fighting, that gives me the security to open up, and no one's questioning my manhood, so I could cry in the drop of a dime. You're not going to call me a wuss or tell me to suck it up. And be honest with you, I think vulnerability is a lot stronger than these and muscles. So, man, God bless me with a great voice to be able to, not today, but God bless me with a great voice to be able to use my own struggles, which is, man, these struggles are every day. And I never knew who I'm going to wake up with in the morning. I never knew who I'm going to get when I wake up. So every single day. And I've never taught, you and I have been friends for a while. We used to say Glazer's crazy, right? It's funny. And football and fighting, crazy is a badge of honor. What y'all never knew is, it was crazy, but I was in a lot of pain. And I still am. So now I'm able to kind of turn it into words and give other people those words so they can start having this conversation. I'm not so alone anymore. So I can, because I'm talking about it now that I'm able to talk about it with other people, I want to give other people the resources, the voice to be able to talk to their family and friends about it.
But I think it's fair to say, though, too, Jay, and I'm not friends the way Strahan and these guys are with friends, but it was also pretty well hidden, though. It's not like you were in some pain, but also might have been a badge of honor for you. Hey, nobody's going to ever see this pain.
It's funny because I started having, again, I call it the gray. And the gray for me is depression, and depression's little jagoff sister, anxiety. And I started having my first anxiety attack, and it's weird. In 2005, I was alone in the Raider Stadium. I was waiting to do a hit for Fox. There was nobody there, not a single soul. And man, boom, this anxiety attack came on. And when you have an anxiety attack, for people out there who want to know what it's like, maybe feel like you're having a heart attack, and the wall eyes start darting around, and my heart starts going. I start sweating everywhere, and my hands start shaking, and I honestly don't even know what I'm saying. Well, then it happened the next week, and the next week, and the next week. And this is 2005. So this is before we started talking about mental health. This is before we started, giving it these names and anxiety attacks and depression. So I had to go at it alone. And I've been more open about, I guess, the depression, the anxiety attacks. And literally, Strahan said to me the other day, I never told him until the other day. And he's like, why? I said, because I don't want to bring down your guys' day. We're in the middle of a show. So every single time you see me on Fox NFL Sunday, from 2005 on, I've had an anxiety panic attack, massive, before the first segment. And that's what you'll see from me is I'll try and crack a joke or smile or something along those lines, because that gets me through it. The faster I can laugh, the faster I can get through it. But if you see me up there also, my hands are shaking, or I'm actually going through it as we speak.
Jay, I wanted to talk to you about this. Again, the new book, Unbreakable: How I Turned My Depression and Anxiety into Motivation, and you can too, because I want people to understand that his story is extraordinarily personal, and this part of it, Jay, because you were you were hidden, and now you're talking about something with anxiety attacks here. Stugatz and I have had this conversation across 15 years. I remember Butch Davis was having anxiety attacks, and we had a sports radio argument about, for $10 million, I'd take some panic attacks. And this might have been around 2005. Can you articulate to people, because I don't think they understand, how you do not want 5 seconds of this particular hell?
Jay, are you okay? By the way, do you need a moment? Like, are you okay?
Oh, I'm good right now. I'm okay right now.
Okay.
My voice will look on. No,
Okay.
I love, the more I talk about it to the world, the more therapeutic it is. When I hold it in, that's where it gets a little scary. So, like, for me, to get through the gray, I need a team. And by me talking about it, this allows me to get more teammates throughout the world. I get to walk this walk with other people. And then, so having a team, and then, being living in gratitude and being of service, this allows me to be of service. But what you just said, look, I know people look at it and go, how could this guy have this? He's rich, he has fame. And yes, like, my life is great. Don't get me wrong. I understand my life is great on the outside, but between my ears sucks. And, it's funny, like, again, you guys know I got involved in mixed martial arts early days. And I'm proud of every one of my scars, from getting my head kicked in by Chuck Liddell, or getting slammed by Randy Couture, or wrestling with Lane Johnson or Andrew Whitworth, or all these guys. Like, I'm proud of all my, ruptured L4, L5 4 times, L1, L2 twice, herniated C2, 3, 4, 5. I always brag about those scars. Now I'm starting to brag about my mental scars. And I want to give it the same pride everybody else. Like, there's no shame in it. Dude, I'm messed up, but I'm good with my messed upness. I want everybody to be like that. We got to fight this thing together.
Forgive me, Jay. I did not hear you correctly, perhaps. I may have missed it, because I thought you said that you would go through anxiety attacks when you were on Fox before the pregame shows. It's been happening from 2005. I might have missed. Were you saying that you were having one right now? That you were having...
No. He asked if I was okay. No, not. I'm not having one right. So here's the wild.
That's
thing.
why I asked, Jay. We thought you were going through one right now.
I thought I heard you. I thought I heard you saying that it still happens week to week right now. That you will, before you go on, you might have an anxiety attack. That's how I heard what you had said.
It happened every single week from 2005 until this year, and I was like, man, I started this year, and I was like, I haven't had one. Week 1, then week 2, then week 3. I had one last week, which is bizarre, after our show, out of nowhere, like in our post-game meeting. And I was like, when I turned to Kurt Menefee, and I was like, dude, and I opened up my jacket, it was just sweat. But here's what happened. And here's what I think got me through it. When I was doing the interview with Lane Johnson earlier this year, where we sat down, and when Lane went off the reservation, and I don't think this made the interview, I said, give us some things that have helped you, or that maybe can help people at home. He said, journal it. He said, I've realized that journaling has really helped. And as he said that, I'm like, oh my God, I wrote the book. I'm not having these before I go on anymore. There it is. So again, and that's why I'm doing this too. Like, the more we could talk about it, the more help I get from other people. Like, we walk this walk together, the more ideas I get. So I had no clue. Now, I still get them here and there. And here's the crazy is I'm great in chaos. Like, inside a cage, right before Randy Couture's about to smash my head in, I am great. On TV, great. I love it. So I suck in calm. I'm great in chaos. So I don't really understand why I have them going into every time I'm doing a show or in the middle. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But again, this thing plays by its own set of rules. There really is no set guidebook for every one of us. We all deal with it differently. We just got to talk about it.
It is interesting, though, Jay, that you would learn. It really is, because I love what a meathead you were back in the days, early 20s, where you're making these connections with these guys, at least in part because you were more like the athletes than the executives. And so you're reporting on things from the athlete's perspective, and you get to become the insider that Schefter is. And you invented it. You made it yourself by being an information guy who had everything, because as a young 20-year-old, you connected with athletes in an unusual way. It's fascinating to hear you, a former sports writer, say, oh, there was so much learning in just talking about my feelings and writing them down and being okay with, I don't have to headbutt you to win arguments, which you would actually do physically. I could talk about how my father hurt me, or I can talk about some of the weak parts of my personality and not be a pussy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the way, start the book, and the journey. My first 10 or 11 years, I was making $9,700 a year. And I looked at it, I said, hey, I'm not, I walked in that giant locker room in '93. I said, I'm going to be the last dude standing here. I'm not going to outwork them by a little, but by a lot. $9,700. And to outwork them all by a lot, that meant 80, 90-hour weeks. So I couldn't have 40 hours there and then another 40-hour job of bartender, bouncer, or boxer, or whatever. I just had to do that. And
you buried everyone. And you buried everyone. You got
and I was making nothing.
You
right?
got more news than anybody, though. Nobody was covering the team. No one had the information you had. No one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But as I started, I finally got my first full-time job, in '99. So I started in '89. All of a sudden, bam, I became the first minute-by-minute insider. Len Pasquarelli and I to start breaking news on that internet thing that I think is going to, catch on. And then we started going from there. And all of a sudden, boom, I got a six-figure job. I went from $9,700 to $50,000, then $100,000, then $130,000. And as I started going up the ladder, and I got to Fox, and we're Fox Interval Sunday, which is a dream job. And man, we got inducted to the Television Hall of Fame a few years ago. And my God, and you think, man, it's going to be rainbows and unicorns. But unless you learn to love yourself from the inside out, which I don't know how to do, trying not to get a little choked up here, but again, I'm good with my vulnerability here. I don't have a concept of how to love myself from the inside out. I don't have a concept. Like the guy you all see, man, I don't see that guy. So it's hard. So my depression, anxiety has ended up motivating me. It's been a curse, but it's been a blessing too. It's motivated me to go do all these great things and become that first insider and this MMA guy and all this other stuff. It's motivated me to try and get love from the outside in, and hope to figure out a way that maybe I could meet in the middle someday. And again, I don't know. I'm still on my journey. So I just know I can get love from the outside. But we describe, and in that chapter, when I say, man, I finally made it, but here's the truth of it. You see me laughing on TV, it's a mask, and, I don't got the Napoleon complex for being short. I got the depression complex. I got to overdo it because of that.
You got to be physically stronger than everyone. You got to get in the cage with Richie Incognito, and you got to beat him up. You got to be more of a physical bull,
tough on the outside
than every athlete,
and also big personality. Right, I'm hiding it. And in the book, you talked about these relationships. It was a year ago this week that I was in Cabo with Sean McVay and Andrew Whitworth. And that's when Stafford happened to check in our hotel. Happened to. And I'm serious, he just happened to. But McVay asked, he was talking to Whit and I, and he's like, so, I kind of don't understand it. Tell me more, like your depression, anxiety. And we start telling him, I said, Sean, and I'm telling you this because this is the chapter in the book that I describe depression, anxiety. Sean, this whole thing to all our readers out there through me trying to teach Sean McVay about the gray and anxiety and depression. And he's like, man, I don't get it. I said, you don't get it because your life is a nightlight. The worst thing that ever happened to you is you lost the Super Bowl in your second year as head coach, as the youngest head coach ever. And your parents look like the people that are in the picture frames when you buy picture frames. Like, you don't get this, right? And I'm like, think how much better coach you could be if you could understand it. And Whit's like, and I said, all your players, man, they all got to be crazy. You got to be crazy to be on this level. And he looks at Whit and he's like, you too? And Andrew's like, what do you think gets me to go do this to people every week? Yeah, Sean, of course me. And he's like, well, I said, Sean, think how much better of a coach you could be if you could learn this. And he said, well, how many of my players do you think have it? And I said, that's not the question you need to ask yourself. How many of my players, how many of my secretaries, how many of my assistants, how many of my scouts? Like, even if you don't have the clinical version that I have, we just went through a pandemic, right? We've been isolated. You got some form of gray. We see our things on social media all the time. We're comparing ourselves to everybody else's filtered fraction of a second. All of a sudden, we think our lives suck. We feel left out. We feel unworthy. So this book and this conversation is to help everybody who has some form of gray. And he got it. And halfway through this year, when they were struggling, he called me. He's like, man, I'm so glad we had this conversation. I've been a lot more vulnerable with my team. And that was pretty damn cool.
Jay, I am stunned by that story, that a boy genius NFL coach would not know that his players' minds would need a kind of care too, because of course they would be hidden in that military school.
Oh, he knew. He didn't know, like I described it. So he knew guys had issues. He didn't know what it felt like.
But how could you
let him know what it felt like? When I say we let him know what it felt like, yeah, we scared the crap out of him that night.
But how can an NFL boy genius not know that Whitworth? I understand a guy who is a pillar of NFL integrity, unbelievable tough guy. But of course, because that sport, what we've been talking about this week, Jay, is that sport's not mentally healthy. Like just the doing of everything that's being done out there, that entire sport and everything around it is something that tests the mental health of any sane person.
Dan, I'm going to give you a story right here. This will kind of sum up why Sean was like, wow. So, Strahan's been my best friend for 30 years, 1993, right? So here I could talk to all our combat vets in my charity about it, and strangers, no problem. All the NFL players who were part of MVP, no problem. I talked to Howie Long about it, talked to Kurt Menefee. They're my therapists on set. Like Howie and Kurt could tell when I'm having a manic episode or my sky is falling. They're like, hey, Howie's been, oh man, incredible. Like, God almighty, he's been, man, my favorite. He gets the monster in the box that a lot of us have to have. He'll grab me, hey, your sky's not falling. I got you, which is incredible. So Strahan's been my best friend for 30 years. 2 months ago, we're supposed to go do dinner. And man, this thing woke me up in the middle of the night. Like the monster just came out of the box. And when the gray really comes out, kicks my ass, it physically affects me. So I feel it behind my heart, like in my heart, behind my rib cage, I could say, on the left side of my gut, only the left side. And you hear things right about, hey, you feel something in your gut, go with your gut. And then my joints ache, man, like it's a horrible rainy day. And I feel like I've been in a 50-round fight. And this day in particular just kicked my butt. And I called Strahan. I said, hey, man, I can't go to dinner tonight. He said, why? I said, man, monster just got out of the box. Man, it just whipped my ass today. I just can't go. And he said, want me to come over? I said, no. He said, you want to talk about it? I said, I do, but not tonight. I just want to go to sleep. And then he said, this chokes me up. He said, I've known you for 30 years. Why have you never told me? I never said this to him in 30 years. So every time I was having one of these days, man, I would just suck it up and go out and lose control sometimes out and sometimes take Vicodin to deal with it, to go out and, just like to mask it any way I possibly could. And he said, why have you never told me? I said, but the point is, what I want your listeners to understand that. Look at his reaction, right? A lot of us have this shame. I said, for some reason, I was just ashamed with you. He's like, but I'm your best friend. I'm like, I don't know how to answer it. But if I told him 30 years ago, I would have had a guy who would have said for 30 years, I'm on the way. Let's get on the phone. I got you. For 30 years, I could have somebody walking that walk with me. So that's why I'm writing this damn book. It's time to take all this shame and stigma and shove it out the window and, connect with our loved ones. I guarantee you, someone you have no idea is sitting right next to you, an awful lot, going through and just don't know how to say something.
What a powerful healing, right? Because you've always been boys with Strahan. Like, that's the guy, you guys. Right. But I mean, no, foxhole together, guys, like friendship, 3 decades.
Yes.
The idea that you would hide that from him when you know the healing, I could see Mike being
a source of shame
I
for
could see,
him.
but I could see Mike being almost hurt by that. Why didn't you tell me? I would have helped you. Like, I would have been right there for you, dude. Like,
what has the reaction been? Not just from Strahan, just in general. What has the reaction been?
Oh, God, the most positive experience of my entire life. Like, I'm so grateful. I'm glad I did this. Like, I had a grandmother this week. Grandmother reach out. I've had a lot of people like this reach out and I'll say, I'm a grandmother. For all these years, I didn't have words to describe this and have the conversation with my family. I do now. I think how powerful that is. After 80 years, this woman can now have this conversation with her family and describe it. Or I've had a lot of girl dads reach out and say, wow, my daughter's going through it and I don't get it. So now I can connect with her on this. And a lot of people have said, my kids who watch all the time, like, wow, Jay has it. Oh, that's pretty cool. Like, as in, they were on the same team. It taken away a lot of the shame. So I have gotten, where social media is usually a cesspool of hate. I have had nothing. Like, it turns out we can actually use it for good. And I started journaling on my social media a few weeks ago. Like, I didn't want to wait for the book to come out. And I was like, if I'm going to do a book, I want people to see what this is like in real time. So when I'm struggling, you're going to see it. We're going to walk this walk together. When I'm having good days, I'm going to tell you why. I'm really going to explain it. And as I've done that, it's been 99.9% positive social media where I'm saying, hey, you have an issue, list it down here and let's all help each other out. Let's lift each other up. Let's walk this walk together. You got something to celebrate? Let's celebrate it with you also. It's been incredible. It's every time I've opened up to somebody about it. And here's the other thing. I have, I always started, I've talked about it in the MVP circle for 6 years, but I only started kind of talking about it publicly. I wrote something for The Athletic a couple of years ago. That's really what prompted this. And I don't think anything of it because I'm proud of my scars. So I wrote it and then all of a sudden, whoa, the reaction, oh my God, you too? So I was like, wow, this is what God put me here to do. And it's been, every time I've opened up to somebody about it, one of my friends, football, fighting, whatever, it has gotten us so much closer together.
Happy for your healing, Jay. The new book, Unbreakable, How I Turned My Depression and Anxiety into Motivation, and you can too, because I want to talk to you more about this at another time, but I think you've gotten just great healing from unleashing whatever were your repressions. Like, you're now sharing your...
everybody else. And if I could lift everybody else up, like, there's 3 pillars to this, and it's a prescriptive book. It's not so much of a memoir. It's more of, hey, this is where, things that happen in my life, but these are things I do. And, one of them is being of service. 2 is having a team. The 3rd one is laughter. But the first 2, that's what this does for me. This book is to be of service to other people, and for us to build a team, because that gets us all through the gray.
Let's see if we can get some laughter. We know you got to get out of here, so we'll say goodbye on this. But he's a former stand-up comic, and we do a looks like game around here where we just make fun of the way that people look and say, do the way these people look, does it fit with something that could be funny? So I'm explaining the game to you. And does Jay Glazer look like a manager for a Gothic-themed pro wrestler?
A Gothic themed? No, more of a meathead themed.
No. Does Jay Glazer look like the jewelry counter clerk at your local 24-hour pawn shop?
You do.
Absolutely.
You do, yeah.
No doubt. Are you kidding me? I look like I'm in the Diamond District. I look like at the door, making sure you don't knock off the place in the Diamond District.
Do you look like the ringmaster of a traveling 3-ring circus that is 2 weeks away from bankruptcy? No, he didn't like that one. It's a very flourishing.
You'll know right away.
Very flourishing and not. It's a circus that's not near bankruptcy. It's a flourishing circus.
Oh yes, there we go. Yes, perfect.
Okay, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Does Jay Glazer look like your hometown friend who grew up to be the local bookie that you owe money, and after he threatens your life, he asks you how your mom's doing?
No, I think if I had like a comb over, yes.
Okay, Jay, thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing the book. I'll talk to you off air because I really do want to catch up.
Love y'all. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Jay.